No, it says it's setting it up first. All right. It should be going. Does it say it's going on your end or what?
Yeah, no, it's all looks good. I think we're live and underway.
All right, sweet. So I'll just start from here. All right. Wait for a couple of oh, here we go. Wait for a couple of people to come on. All right. So I'll let some people jump on there. Can you see? Have you got yours? Because I don't have both browsers up. I've only got this Zoom one up.
Yeah, no, I can see you fine, mate. I can see. I'm in the Zoom part, so I can see all that, and yeah, can see you. All
Okay,
good.
cool. I guess also if people have questions this time, we might handle some if you've got any coming up from your end.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll jump into it. So for people that didn't catch the first one, or for people that are coming back the second time, this is Jason Reynolds from the Quantum Movement. We had a good chat a couple of weeks ago and kind of went pretty well for a lot of people. They had some good things to say. I think we helped a few people get over a few hurdles mentally from what we spoke about last time. And this time, I think we're going to concentrate mostly on, we got the Freedom Day coming up on the 5th on Saturday. And there's mixed emotions and mixed mindsets and mixed everything from what I can tell coming into the day, coming into the weekend. So some people are feeling like, it might be a bit of a setup. Some people are feeling like it's kind of playing into their hands and there's a chance that a ton of people will get arrested. Some people think that there's too many people that are scared of that, so they're not going to turn up. But then I keep hearing also that there's a ton of people turning up everywhere. So I think there's some mixed messages getting around. And I think it's really important as well to have a look at what we're doing with it, why it's an important day, how we can make it successful for ourselves, and maybe just look at how to approach things. So, do you want to kick off with a little bit of commentary on what you've seen and heard, and what you're expecting?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I thanks, Tom, first of all, but I would say it's quite interesting to be in this particular time of life and to know how to actually respond and react in this particular moment, because I don't know if anyone's ever been in this particular stage or state or experience. It's all very well and good to be brave, and it's all very well and good to be, definitive, but it's probably what I would say is most important this time to recognize how vulnerable you are or how you feel at this particular time and be present to that. It's not trying to muscle up. It's not trying to have a story. It's not trying to be the hero. It's about this whole thing is not about a protest in my eyes. It's about an awakening. It's about people becoming to a greater degree of presence, that nearly like when you're caught doing something mischievous that you shouldn't be doing and you get caught, suddenly you become very aware of everything that exists around you. So it's to me, this is a really significant time to, yes, the protest is there, yes, standing up, yes, having rights and finding sovereignty and everything else that goes with that. But I think most importantly, and if it's not resolved in people before they actually go out, if they're not aware of what they're starting with, what they have within them to begin with, that their anxiety, their fears, am I going to get arrested? If they don't resolve that before they go, what they're going to find is that they're going to be challenged by that throughout the day. I mean, to me, these are things that are coming up for everything in our life at the moment is coming up for us to bring attention to it. But if we wait until we're in the thick of it, when there's a lot of volume of things going on around us, we're going to find it a bit more challenging because we'll have less attention that we'll be able to provide to it. So to me, it's a great time in preparing what's coming up. And I know for me, it's not about thinking what I'm going to do on the weekend or what it's going to be like. It's being present to what's coming up at this particular time. So when I get to the weekend, it can just be whatever it is that unfolds. It's I've noticed in myself just, that the very nature of getting arrested and those types of things, it brings fear, and it's kind of the craziness is, how have we got to such a point where in a country, in a world where it's, to consider the limitations that are now being placed upon us that have become nearly normalized, that how have we allowed ourselves to get into a state of fear of actually just being our own self and having the ability to be able to speak out? That's a big one, and I think more than anything else, it's there's nothing to fight for here. There's something to stand for, and I don't. Yeah, for me, I believe it all starts within, and I believe that what happens externally is going to be, a flow-on effect of that. But it's just kind of interesting. I think it's brought reconciliation to people and how much they've given away for such a long period of their life that it's now time to reclaim that. But not in one moment, not in one step, but in a habit towards themselves. I mean, I suppose there's so much more to what's going on, but to me, that's a starting point. How do you feel?
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest elements of Saturday is that, I'm not one of those guys that actually goes to marches and protests. I see a lot of them as kind of not that useful. They used to be useful. I think in the 60s and 70s, protests got a lot done. I think these days, besides, Bentley and places like that, obviously they still have their place. But if we just turn up at places and wave banners around and bang saucepans together and go home thinking we've done our bit, you just got to really look at what that's actually done or has not done. It's important to be honest with ourselves about the actions that we partake in and put into the world and what actually comes from them. And sometimes just going out and whizzing around in a circle doesn't get things done. It's just kind of like, might be fun, take a few photos, but what does it achieve at the end of the day? And I think one of the biggest elements of Saturday is, from what I keep hearing from people around the country and around the world, is that people feel alone. They feel that nobody else understands, nobody else is thinking the way they do. They're the only one. They can't talk to anybody. They feel fearful and small and insignificant and everything like that. So I think one of the best parts about Saturday, and the reason that it's important for people to come out and to come out in good spirits and to not, we're not opposing things. We're just standing up for, what we want, which is just the ability to make our own decisions, go where we want to go, the rights that we're born with. And so I think one of the main elements for me about Saturday is just to show people. So it's even just to show ourselves, but it's also to show those people that maybe aren't in our circles and speaking the way we do, or to each other, where we have a good support network of people who all think the way we do and are acting the way we do. But there's a lot of others that don't. And so I think it's really important for them to see how many people are coming out and how many people are not coming out in fear as well, that are there to celebrate ourselves and each other and what we have in this country and what we want to maintain in this country, bearing in mind that our rights have been stripped away for the last several decades, slowly but surely. So we want to claw back more than what we're about to lose if things go downhill. We want to actually bring back what we were originally, born onto this earth with. So that's my take on the 5th, is really just to show that solidarity, to show others, to allow other people to see, so that they can feel better about what's going on and better about themselves. So you're going to go to Brisbane?
Yeah, I am. And look, I've never been to a formal protest before, mainly for the reason, excuse me, mainly for the reason being that I don't believe anyone's taken anything from me. And I think that's a really important part of all of this is, like you said, it's coming together and it's being with other people in this same space, but more so confronting the fears of, ideas of tyranny and control that have been put in place, but to come to a peace within yourself, to recognize no one else is in control of it. No one else has been. We're not asking for any sort of powers that be to give something back that we haven't already given. So we're the ones in control of bringing that back into our own space. There's nothing in my eyes, there's nothing to fight for that we don't already have. And I think it's very important with this whole thing. It's not to fight against or to send a message. It's to resolve a level of strength and understanding within ourselves where, look, we all know when we're true to ourselves and when we are straight in our intentions and our purpose, no one can bend us from that. And you've met people that are very resolved in that way, that they won't bend for anything. They're clear, that they're not intolerant, but they're clear on what it is that they stand for. And I think it's important that I've looked a lot of this at, that we've got to, I believe, avoid righteousness. There's this whole idea that we're right because we know more. You guys are not because you don't know as much. You're sheep, and everyone, each side calls each other sheep. And to me, the nature of this is a real opportunity to come together to look to create something that where politicians, tyranny, corruption, and censorship, and everything else that's there, unless it's recognised that we have that within us, it's not. We're not being censored. We've been censoring ourselves for such a long period of time. We're not, being invoked by corrupt people. We're corrupt, and we've corrupted ourselves in such a way that's been chipped away for such a long period of time. But for many of us, that's difficult to accept, because it's so easy to, point the finger and go, you did this to me. Look what you guys did. And we can research you, we can investigate you, and we can find some chinks in your moral character. We've all got them. I mean, for fuck's sake, there's shit that we have done, all of us in our own life, that is going to be judged by others in a way that's not fair, that is not congruent. And to me, I think we need to be very present to what it is we bring to the table. And when we understand that, then you start to create something beyond what exists at the moment. And that's where politicians, that's where the things we're fighting against lose their power. But if we start to fight against them, we continue to keep watering them. We continue to keep growing them, because we become unruly. We become without organization and direction. And I think that's, there's a part of that that's good. This is like a bit of the coming out party, the debutante, the celebration of people coming together. But, it's really important for me to suggest it's not about coming out, like you said, and banging the pots and pans. It's coming together in such a way, what do we do from here? We can complain as much as we like, but if we get someone else to jump in who's likable and is aligned with our beliefs and our, of good heart, that they will become corrupted if the very people that have put them in that particular place become absent again. It's our own ability to be discerning and to not corrupt ourselves, which elevates people that are in charge or that are in the honor of leadership to maintain that. Yeah. No quarters given. And that's, to me, it's a big one. It's a big one because it's so easy. Like, it's so easy, as everyone's in years when you're younger and drinking, and there's always one person in the group who just takes it that bit too far, and that level of, social collision and fun, gets taken to a whole different degree. And it's about, to me, resolving the contribution I've made to what I don't like, and then getting to a particular point of coming together and how I move beyond this, not continue to subscribe to just a different person in charge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually went through this in a meeting we had on Sunday, I think it was, when I addressed the audience. And it's something that's not really pleasant for people to hear, but it is important to be honest with ourselves. So following on from what you just said, quite often what we do in our day and age, we lie to ourselves on a lot of levels. We tell ourselves we're doing the right thing, or this is good, and we don't, we just lie to ourselves a lot. But it's important to realize that at some point, you got to come to an understanding of where that's leading you, and that's not necessarily leading you in the direction you want to go when your intentions and things are going this way, but you're lying to yourself and you're really doing, kind of something that'll lead you in the opposite direction. So we have 100% created and played a big part in what we're experiencing now. I think we spoke last time about why it's super important to know what we're creating, not what we're fighting against, but what we're creating for a new world and a new way of being. But the problem is that the world is the way that it is now because we've played a big role in the narrative. We've become the characters and we've created it. So, some of us have borrowed a lot of money to buy cars and bigger houses than perhaps we need. So we've engaged in the system to support it in that way. We've done certain things that it's created what we're experiencing now. We won't go into too many specifics, but we've really created it. So there's an old analogy where if all of the money was spread evenly amongst the world today, within 6 months of everybody having equal money, within 6 months, those that were rich would be rich again. Those that were poor would be poor again because of the mindset. Some are investors and others are consumers. Some are unscrupulous and they'll do whatever it takes to make a buck. And others are very, very honest and would rather give money the way than it's the way that our mentality works. So if we do not change the way that we have thought and created what we have now, it kind of doesn't matter what happens on on Saturday or in any march or whatever in the future. Because if we don't change those things, if we say to other people, you must provide us with this, you must do this, if you're giving your power away and your power to think away, somebody else is going to use your brain for you. Probably won't be to your benefit. If they're thinking for you, it's going to be to their benefit. If they're creating a system for you, it's going to be to their benefit. It's not going to be to ours. So we really need to be very honest with ourselves about the role that we have played in creating what we're seeing now and what we are willing to give up. Last time you spoke about what are you willing to say no to? That leads the way to what you are willing to say yes to, but you have to make that distinction, because if we don't know what it is that we won't put up with anymore and what we won't do anymore, do we need to be voracious consumers of oil and money and material things, or can we choose something that's different? And if we're not willing to give up our fancy cars, houses, holidays, and everything else, we're going to keep creating the same system and propping up the same system that has literally been offered to us. It was never a mandatory system. It was never something that we had to do. It was offered and we took it. You know, hey, we can give you a loan for $500,000 so you can buy a property and then put property values up and everyone else can get it. Yeah, I'll take it. I want a property. Nobody ever just thought, no, hang on, that doesn't sound right. You know, why does shit have to cost that much? You know, why do I do that? I can get it for free. The earth provides all this stuff for free. So it's this colonial mindset, that this predatory mindset that has brought us to where we are. And all of us have played a part. You know, I got a credit card when I was 21 and then I figured out what banks were doing. I didn't do it from there. I don't buy anything brand new. You know, I support jobs if there's give and take with that. But once I started looking beyond the counter of where I was buying things, like shit, I can't support that anymore. But for the first 21 years of my life, I was doing all of that stuff. I was throwing plastic in the bin and doing this and that. And, you know, I can't then turn around and go, hey, you stop doing that. That's bad for the environment. Hey, you stop consuming you're supporting pedophilic bloody bankers and whatever, because I was doing that. So I have to have enough humility to say, well, this is what I choose to do now. And if me being me inspires you, I'll tell you what I do, but I'm not going to come out and tell you what to do. But for the first thing is being honest. It's like, yeah, from the 50s or before that, from way before, there's people talking about the environment. But for the first 21 years of my life, I either didn't hear it or chose not to hear it. So we created this, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's it. I couldn't stress enough how much power there is in people recognizing and accepting that and coming into a state of just presence with all the things that they do that they judge others for. If that was present and seriously be able to laugh at it and be able to see exactly how ironic we are in our judgments of others and in the space we create, it's a significant thing. I mean, I've been 47 years patient to allow me to get to a place where I accept myself, and you know, to start judging others for doing different to us is exactly what's been fought or stood up against. I mean, look, Bill Gates is by no means the most popular man in the world, but the very nature of that guy and and all of his cohorts and friends, excuse me, they don't believe they're doing anything wrong. They believe that they're doing something right. Like what you said before about when people are not present to their own awareness and present to their own significance and the way in which they use their own capacities, it will be utilized and managed by others. And the very nature of that is because there's probably been such a great absence of time, which provides also a massive opportunity, it's allowed people to look at, well, there's all these unused resources. What can we do? What could I do? How can we use that? And look, they believe in what they're doing at a point of truth, as a point of honor, as a point of humility. But it's very different to the greater majority. And it's been very long coming to realize that, well, why would someone think like that? Why would they speak that way? And where people have spoken, we've thought that they were talking about what I meant rather than what they were saying. And it's an important thing to not fight against that, but to recognize they're just other people that they just want something different, but they've become extremely organized in creating what they've got. They are just more organized. They're a great example of how to create something. It's just a different agenda. And it's at this particular point that people are not buying into that agenda, and for a long period of time are now starting to say, I want to change it. But to go out with the pitchforks is not going to create a difference, but to change and shift something within us at a more patient, and long-term way is where, there's definitely a satisfaction in the immediacy, but to be able to actually allow that change to be long-term, to make that to be definitive, is what to me is going to make a real difference. To not fight against the police, to not fight against groups, but to start to look for character, not identities. And that's, to me, I mean, I don't believe everyone in the government is corrupt, but I believe it's an environment that promotes it. And for someone who doesn't show corruption in that particular place, is someone of a significantly strong character because of what they're surrounded by. But it's the same thing as an example what we need to look at within our own selves to govern ourselves. And that's what I think, the great thing we're moving into.
Yeah, well, the issue is how many people are actually adults in society and aren't just 12-year-olds running around in an adult body, and can they govern themselves? That's where we've kind of got to either provide some kind of sub form of leadership or inspiration, or whatever it takes. It is kind of designed that way to keep people from being indoctrinated in certain ways and never really going through rites of passage, and we don't have elders anymore to keep us in line. So a lot of people are not really what I would call well-formed adults, So more and more, I'm finding in the world, and that's one of the great things about this current situation, is it's kind of sifting through, and you're seeing a lot of people who are willing to self-govern and take responsibility. There's a lot that aren't. So I think we do have to have an element of empathy and kindness towards them, as opposed to making another rift and another us and them, and being a little bit compassionate, because it can be frustrating, but sometimes kids can be frustrating too. So I think it's one of those things where if we can see other people who are acting a certain way, and we can see the 5-year-old in them, the 11-year-old, it's kind of hard to get mad at them and call them names and things like that. It's like, can you look at them as if that's the age they're at? That is the age where the unmet needs of the child never grew. So that part of them that thinks that you've got to wear a mask or that the government's going to protect them, that's like 5 or 6 years old still. It never grew up. So can we look at them like they are 6 years old and give them that empathy and compassion and that that responsibility, being an adult, to lead and to provide inspiration for a child to grow past that unmet need, that I wasn't heard, I wasn't loved, I wasn't given attention, that kind of thing, where they don't have to express that anymore. They can grow beyond that and then become a self-governing adult who doesn't need to express those traits anymore. So it depends where you're from. Like, what do you see? I mean, I've seen, I don't know how, I can't put a figure on it, but do you see that changing in general? Do you see more and more people becoming self-aware and able to self-govern?
Yeah, I think it's happening all the time, and I think it happens from when individuals start to embrace that within themselves. They start to pick that up and see that in others, and they start to prompt those types of conversations. Whereas, sometimes people are a little bit, quite often they don't want to share what it is that they think or feel because it might be offended by others. So I think a big part of all of this is about speaking truth in such a way to not be received, to not be celebrated, to not be judged, but just to start conversations from a place of heart. And, to me, that's probably like maybe as the opposite to him before, the 12-year-olds, the 13 and 14, when you get and like adults as well, when you get them in a space where there isn't any agenda, there is some open and honest conversations. And to me, the very nature of growing up, sometimes we become adulted and sometimes we grow. And the very nature is that most of us have become adulted when we've become compromised from what we were, still holding on to the power that we never, assumed or recognized at a young age. And, to me, it's a really significant part of what this is all about, is what has been taken from people is great power. What people have not recognized is their own significance, and therefore have bought into a system that's been presented rather than suggesting, well, it's not what I want, I'm going to create something different. So I believe in my own experience that the most difficult and challenging thing for anyone is to create something unique. It's I don't think there's anything that requires more courage from an individual than that. And whether that's a level of communication, whether that's something that comes into a form and is created. I mean, go and try and start a business, in any particular part of life, and recognize what's actually required to bring yourself to be presented, to be judged by others in each and every way as you start to suggest what you may be brilliant at and what you have to offer. There's a very noble experience that happens in that as we expose ourselves. And I believe many of us have lived in the shade a little bit of what's been protected or been secured for us. And it's now to recognize, like you're saying before with the money, many people want money and these types of things in order to feel free and to feel sovereign in themselves and to have a different life. But we don't have that because we don't understand how to manage it. And I think this is the great part, that after Saturday, it's to start to prepare now what happens after that, because what we don't want to occur is like someone having a huge high and being amazed within that. But it's going there with the intention of what it is that you want to create, what you're going to become beyond that, because this is where, this is the foundations that are being laid. And I don't believe that it doesn't take a lot of strength and courage. And I'm not saying to cower in the corner. I'm talking about standing in a space of our own truth, but not at the destruction of something else or the force of that. It's in the creation of yourself that those other things pass by the wayside. As soon as you start to give more attention to yourself, those things crumble because they're not getting attention from us. It's it's a natural law, and it's how we use our attention is going to be most critical going forward. And we'll start to see how much we've acquiesced it to get to this particular point as we start to reclaim what we invest in. But it's I think it's a lot of what we're saying, it might make sense to some people, it might resonate with some people, but there is no doubt going to be the fear as people step outside the door and they see that first police officer, what they will do, how they will respond to that when they start to see someone maybe being manhandled in a way that is not okay. What do they do in that particular case? Are they fearful of that occurring? I mean, these are things where I think bravado and this mask that we've worn in the past and the facade of it's about being congruent to this particular point, to understand that if those things would occur, what would I do? And to be present to that and to confront your fears that might be there, your vulnerabilities, no matter how big or small you are, but to look, I don't know exactly at this particular point, if I was to see that, what I would do. Have I considered, am I prepared to be arrested for if I see something immoral happening? Like, to what degree am I prepared to represent myself? Having my child with me as well. Like, what am I? And I think that's something all of us need to be present to before they get there, to remove the anxiety, to remove the uncertainty, to come in a much whole, balanced and present state. I think that's for me about being the example, not only to ourselves, but to generations and to other people that are there. And it doesn't take many to do that, to have an influence. 2 to 3% of the people in that particular state creates a significant level of balance and power, and not anxiety that suddenly deteriorates into a mess.
Yeah. It's quite often that unchecked energy that's like a wayward. It's a wayward energy it's the opposite of something that's calm and measured and laser focused. So if people are getting hyped up about this and they go in without a proper intention for going there, a real reason, not a dedication, but just their walk has a purpose. If they're just going and they just get into that frenzy mentality or that hype mentality, and they just kind of like want to scream and shout and do things and just to do something because they don't really know what they're doing, that's going to create that kind of environment where there'll be maybe some, manhandling or whatever going on. I don't want to say violence, but there'll be, some things go down. But if we go in there with a good intention, we know why we're there. We walk with the earth, so to speak. We really carry a presence with us there. That emanates, like you said, that really emanates beyond just us. That emanates the whole crowd. It keeps police calm. They're going in. You put yourself in their shoes. What some people fail to do, I think, is put themselves in somebody else's shoes. So when you say, what will it be like when I see the first policeman? Well, what's it like for the policeman seeing the first guy come out of the gate? What's he like? Oh shit, what have I got to do? Am I going to, do I shoot him? what do I do? Like, that's kind of what's going through their mind. So if you can carry that resonance and that calm, you can affect them where if you're chilled, they're chilled. It's like a dog. If you're getting all hyped up, you'll hype the dog up. If the police are there, if you're just like, we're just here to, hello, you talk to people, you say hello to them, and they can feel that resonance, then they don't need to jack themselves up to meet or go beyond where the crowd is. Because I've done security and it can get pretty dicey when you're dealing with when you're doing crowd control and you've got a large crowd, and if things spilled over, even if you've got weapons and your buddies are with you, you're outnumbered by a big margin. You don't want to be on that edge. You want to know that the crowd is cool, and then you can be cool. You can just watch, you can do your thing. So here, for example, in Byron, one of our guys, Zev, who's great, he's already put the police on notice for what we're doing, what we intend, what we want out of them. Because remember that the police serve us. They're not our bosses. They get power when a crime has been committed. If there are victims, if there are crimes being committed, they have power. They don't have power to arrest us, to ask us questions, to do anything until there is such a point that we create a crime or some crime is in progress. That doesn't mean going against an act. That's not a crime. So there has to be a victim. So we put them on notice for what they want us to do, for what we want them to do. We want them to make sure we've got safe passage to get from where we're starting to where we're going. We've told them that we intend to be peaceful. We're not there to cause any fuss or anything like that. And so far, they're happy. They've already acknowledged that we can do it. They're happy for us to do it, and so on and so forth. I don't know what people are doing in other states. I would recommend, if people have not served notice on the local police, to do that. Quite a simple process, actually. It's literally just a notice where you literally just, maybe I'll give a link. I'll put a link in this once we're finished, maybe to Zev's site. You might be able to get a template to do, but it's literally just going to the police and saying, this is what's happening. This is what we would like you to do. We expect of you as people that serve us. And when it's done respectfully, of course, they will, in most cases, comply. Now, I don't know what that's going to apply in Victoria, where it's more of it's a different situation than it is up here, but the same principles apply. So to protect yourself, that's a good thing to do. And when the stakes are higher, if you're in Melbourne and the stakes are higher, it's more important to be more measured and calm in what you're doing, and not to get into that frenzied mentality, unless you've got 500,000 people on your side, in which case do what you want, really. But I still don't recommend, that we don't want to get into these sorts of, they don't help us as individuals. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that I was reading a few of the comments, but what's happened in the past has happened in the past, and when we continue to keep looking to the past to justify our actions now, we're starting on the wrong foot. Whether we've been handed this, whether we created it or whatever, we're here now. So the reason for this is, I think history has a lot to answer for, and our focus and attention upon history has a lot to answer for, because there's stories of what has occurred from one perspective, or maybe a multitude of perspectives, but there's so many other elements and fabrics within that weave. So for me, at this particular point, it's really about, at this particular moment, like you said, how that cop's going to feel. I mean, these are people. We are people. When I see someone that is not, being congruent with what's there, I mean, I'm not on anyone's side. I'm on the side of what I believe to be true. I'm not going to fall into any sort of mob mentality. I am there to stand for what I believe to be true. And I think that's the whole very nature of one of the comments I saw before, is we know just about a little of our potential. And I think that is the one thing that we all need to take responsibility for, is to recognize how indoctrinated we've become by what other people have told us that we are. Let alone, I mean, medical science, to me, I think there's some great doctors, but I believe medical science is completely flawed, because it comes from a place of where they believe something is broken rather than understanding the full capacity of what exists. And this is the nature of what we need to become to be able to discern, is an individual against a cause. And to be able to look at that within our own self, like where do we fit? What is it that we are? Not what is it, who are we, but what are we? And to spend some time in recognizing maybe at this point I don't understand that. So, it's it's something I always believe to be true, which is something that, and I like the word hoodwinked, and I believe we've been hoodwinked in some way, in the fact of that we're meant to come together as a community. I think this is one of the greatest disasters that has been placed upon us, and especially many people who haven't taken the time to discern and become present. And there's notions around the world now of nationalism, but is to understand this from what I've come to realize is that, from my perspective, until we are independent and understanding of our own truth at any particular moment, what we have to offer someone else is not integral, it's not true, and it's not authentic. It's until we understand where we are independent, where we are individual, and we come to own that we can then come to accept that in another. If we start to acquiesce just to come together in order to come together under a banner, we're going to be manipulated, we're going to be corrupted in very simple and very significant ways, and that's where our power is taken. It's until we fulfill the whole vessel that we have. I mean, we're the vessel carrying the cargo, and that cargo, until that is fulfilled within us, we as individuals will be corrupted. And we can sit there at a low level if we want to blame those people around us, but it's to recognize within our own self, if we want to create significant change, we have to do this from a place of wholeness. No one's going to listen to someone screaming and shouting, not for a long period of time. And maybe initially in surprise, but people who make decisions from anger, from imbalance, from screaming and trying to be domineering, always fail. Always fail. There is never a significance that comes. I mean, you can scream at a child and bully them as much as you like, but they don't listen to you. They start to emulate you. You become an example in their life and an influence rather than being able to, so a message delivered in calm is a message that's remembered and understood. A message that's delivered with presence. One that's screamed and shouted is not going to be listened to, and it will, it will invoke fear. It will bring fear to the surface, and it will degenerate into something of those particular lines. So it's important to recognize, and to me, so important to check ourselves before going to this. If it's a matter of we're going to fight the opposition, we've already lost. There is no opposition here. And that's the whole point. We've got to find ourselves. Once we find ourselves, then community becomes an organic progression of that, not the focus, which is what the problem is these days. That I think many people from a point of leadership are trying to froth people up to all come together. That's not going to work. It's until we become independent and individual within our own self that there isn't a left or a right or a wrong. It's about that particular individual understanding a truth. And once they do and embody that, we allow ourselves to accept it in others, and we become much more deep in our fabric and much more significant. And we allow other people to take the space and to take the stage when we are not. And I think that's a really important part that we might have something to say and share, but it's knowing also when to step back, because where someone else's brilliance is being shown is what's most important. I think it's, might have been Bruce Lee or someone like that, it's ease that is a greater superpower. It's calm. And to me, that's it's a significance. It's a significance that I think is, like I might say, it's not so sexy in the nature of going into a protest, but it is essential.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Pretty much for everything in life, though, isn't it? You got to get comfortable with yourself. If you don't know yourself, you're always just projecting out things onto others or onto the world and situations around you. It's never your fault. It's always somebody else's, and it's always somebody else doing the bad and not us. So I think, look, we've covered a few good things. I think it's important for people to just, I guess, get a sense of where they're coming from when they're attending on Saturday. So, and it's important to go as well. I think that some people are getting a little bit caught up in what happens if, or, I don't know if it's, I think all of these things are just designed. You got to remember, again, put yourself in their shoes. If they feel that they're about to be defeated, they'll do what they can to make you feel like you shouldn't come out. So it's one of those things that don't come out in anger, like we've been saying. Don't think you're gonna. There's an old expression, I guess, that sums it up, which is if you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword. So don't go out wielding a sword, so to speak. Just stand up. You just have to just look somebody in the eye. Just make a connection. That's the most important thing, because that resolves in us what we want, which is just to make sure we maintain our personal freedoms, really, which goes beyond laws and codes and statutes. It's just who we are. We can get back to that essence and understand that we want that. And it's actually a great thing. It's great that this opportunity has come around, because people, I don't think, were that sure about what they really wanted, or usually aren't sure about what they want until there's like something that makes them realize. And they showed this in movies actually a lot. There was one, I don't watch a lot of movies, but there was one, they had all superheroes in it. One guy's this big blue guy that travels back through, there's a guy that travels into dimension, whatever it is. There's this guy who he's gone off the bad side sort of thing, and he seems like he's on the bad side, and he wants to blow up a few buildings or whatever. And so anyway, one of the guys says, we got to stop him. And then he explains what he's doing. And then this big blue guy just goes, actually, you know what, he's right. Because the only way to unite humanity is to incite some incident. They're not going to do it off their own back. They need an inciting incident to make that happen. We needed coronavirus to come together and to realize what it is that we want, because we definitely don't want that. We don't want what's being shoved in our faces in the news and things. So by knowing that, we know what we do want. And so now we have a world event which has made us go, yeah, good. Now I know who I am. I know what I want. Now I can go in that direction. It's a big blessing, I feel, anyway.
Oh, it's massive. I think to me, this is not about this in the next couple of months. This is 5-10 years from now is where this all really starts to occur. And I think if anyone's looking at this from, once this protest is done and once we, overthrow or whatever it may be, things are going to be better. This is a transition, 4 or 5 years minimum in the making. And I think it's a really important to put that in perspective. I did see something just pop up on the comments, and I'll say it was a Rosa Castelli, and I resonate so much and agree completely with what she said, that to go there, and I think she suggested how powerful it would be to protest in silence. From the whole way in the whole space, the very nature of that and what that does in bringing people into a place together. It's like, look, the irony of what happened at the start of this whole adventure, and I don't mean life, I mean the COVID, early March, was there was such a peace. I remember on the beaches in the Sunshine Coast, there was a plague. I wouldn't call them a plague. I'd call it a wondrous group of butterflies that were just phenomenal. Hundreds of thousands of them all at once. And there was the sun was out. There was more people on the beach than I've ever seen before in my life of a morning. But there was everyone doing the same thing around the world for probably the first time that I've ever been alive. That they might have all been going into a state of fear and panic, or they might have all been locked down, but they were all doing the same thing. There was a subtle alignment that was occurring. Now, the reason demonstrated maybe not the best idea, but it showed what could be created. But to go out in silence and to be able to walk in silence, to be able to stand in silence for a period of 3 or 4 hours, what mark that would leave on individuals and what connection that would have in just observing and being with people around them is extremely significant. It's I think it's quite phenomenal, and we stand in protest every single day when we're silent. When we're able to sit in our own space, when we don't have to answer a question because someone asks us one. We don't have to do anything along those lines. We don't have to answer a phone because it's ringing. It's a convenience. When we are silent within ourselves, when we honor our own selves, we're protesting the whole time. But the very nature of all of this is, for me, I think things like that would be quite amazing. We've all got opinions. I mean, we could talk here forever and indulge ourselves and whatever it may be, but it's the very nature of sitting in silence that I think is so significant. And if there was a wisdom in however this was being organised, that was the case, that might bring the greatest amount of confrontation and fear to the people that are there, to be able to honor that for such a period of time,
Mm.
to arrive, to walk, to be with kids, to be with older people. And I think that would be significant.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was my preference, but I've got a bit of a minority preference on that one. Most people want to go and like do the yelling and the celebrating and all that sort of stuff. So, but I 100% agree. I think, you know, to have the greatest effect, that the silence is eternally powerful. It's more powerful than any amount of noise we can make. So, I definitely, you know, that was my initial suggestion, but we'll have to see what plays out. But yeah, totally agree. At least it's a good thing for people to consider, even if even if where you go in whatever city or town, even if it's not a silence, you can carry that. You can carry that same energy, even if you're not totally silent. But it's that brooding, that kind of all pervading, constant, just calm energy. That's kind of what the silence
Oh,
is, as opposed to the, you know, the frantic kind of an energy. So you can still carry it. You can still carry it even if it's not a silent protest.
yeah, you might have to speak up about being silent.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm actually speaking on the day, so the people who've organised it here are going to have like a gathering. A few people are going to speak, and then we're going to do a little walk to the beach, and that can be done in silence. Yeah, we'll see what people want to do. Can't really like convince everybody if the majority are going a different way, but it's at least to give the idea of the power of that anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I think it's and I think that's ultimately what people want. But I would, you know, as much as possible, encourage people to you know, to resolve whatever it may be, to look at any anxieties or uncertainties that exist now and become present to them before they do go to such an event. It's because it's abnormal. It's not what it's been previously, and at times protests in the past have been about oppression and fighting against. And you know, this is a very difficult, a very different scenario. It's about a transition, I believe, anyway, in my part. But I mean, it's all about everyone's individual capacity through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a transition. That's why it's exciting. Like, it's a really exciting time to be alive, I feel. So quite happy to be a part of it. And look, I'm just, you know, I'm one of those people that I've been more, I know, in the public eye since I made those videos a few months ago. People always come up to talk to me. And I'm like, normally I'm the kind of guy that doesn't like that. I like being a ghost. I don't like people talking to me. I like being by myself. I don't like big crowds and groups. You know, I'm not a talker really per se. So, but I'm needing to come out and not be like that now, because it's a time to speak. It's a time to actually, you know, and the point of that is that I completely see where people might rather be just sit at their home, either because they don't believe in protests and rallies, or because they just they're worried about something or whatever. But this is just one of those times where you have to realize it is the time, if there ever was a time, to just stand up. You don't have to yell, you don't have to scream, you just have to stand up. Because if you think you're going to just sit in your house and this will all just blow over, if you just do the right thing and stay in your house and it'll all blow over, it's not going to blow over. You're going to come out of your house and it's going to be worse than what's going on now if you don't actually adjust. It's not even making a stand. It's almost irrelevant that you turn up to the rally. It's you stand for yourself. Because if you sit there thinking stuff will blow over, you're essentially not a part of life. It's like you're not really engaging with life. Like I say, it doesn't mean you have to go out and protest and bang pots and do all that, or cause, you know, you don't have to like clash with people or cause confrontations. You just have to stand for yourself, because if you don't stand up for something, old expression is you'll fall for anything, but realistically what it means is if you're not participating in your own life, in what you are creating, then it will be created for you. And you've already seen what's happening now. What's being created for you and offered, isn't that appealing?
Mm.
Maybe it is appealing for you, I don't know. But for most people, I think, that are at least listening to this, you know, if you've got any consideration at all about not turning up on Saturday and things, just stand up for yourself first and foremost. Then if you want to venture out and meet a few other people, do that too. You know, it's kind of, I think that's maybe a way you can come to peace for yourself if you're feeling nervous or apprehensive or anything like that about the day on Saturday.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's Yeah, it's very exciting, and it's yeah, for me, it's all about the preparedness to life, isn't it? It's about being present to not just what's coming, but what we are. And yeah, yeah, I'm really excited for what comes, and I believe, like in any particular moment in life, we've got the opportunity to make some significant decisions moving forward. And you know, I was previously from Melbourne, and I speak to a lot of people that are in Melbourne at the moment,
Hmm.
and you know that there is definitely a level of frustration that's going on down there, and it's but I do feel the very nature of what's going on is that this slow process that is occurring, and that maybe people call the tyranny that is there. I mean, there's obvious signs to me that the whole thing is crumbling. But it doesn't mean, like you said, to sit back and become a victim, waiting for other people to do the work, waiting for other things to change before I can move forward. That it's going to blow over. You know, it's all about in our own self how we move forward and claim what it is that we are. It's so significant.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Do you want to have you got anything you want to add before we wrap up? Any last things to say?
Um, yeah, look, to me, one of the things that's nothing that's prepared or anything, but just in feeling into it now, I'm taking my son with me who's 8 years old, and you know, and I suppose it's probably one of the most beautiful things of being a father. When people ask me what I am, it's a father. If it's not the first thing I say, it'll be one of the first two things that I would say in how I recognize myself. But I look at the honor that I have in that particular role and the example that I provide. So it's my intention to create an environment in my life that not only um, elevates a child, but challenges and confronts him to experience himself in a very significant way. So to me, when I when I go and where I go, it's there's always the opportunity to be able to use my weight or my force in order to change the environment around me. And for me, it's about recognizing how I would do so, which in a way that is an example or demonstrates presence to my own child. So I'm going to be looking at that on the weekend in such a way in how it would be received by the next generation. What it is that we're not just creating as a structure or as some form going forward, but what it is that we're creating by instilling in others that becomes habitual, that becomes normalized to them. And that for me is, I suppose, what I want to create. It's not about pulling down a group of people. It's about, look, I think one of the greatest idiocies that exist is looking at children as if they need to be protected. I mean, and this is something that I believe has been a major problem these days. That children don't need to be protected. Children need to be understood. And we put ourselves in such a place where we've got a generation of children that are unable to identify themselves, let alone become themselves in front of others, that are you know, having conversations at a young age about anxiety. I mean, what a crazy thought. It's an individual's misunderstanding of themselves that we've implanted within them, rather than allowing a child to be the demonstration to us. And that to me is what's been lost. A lot of this generational wisdom that is not passed on. I mean, to me, that is a significant aspect of life that is lost. And we look at Western society, and you talked about elders before, but like, it comes down to every single parent. What is it that's important in your life? What is it that's significant in your life that you will be making an organized effort to be able to spend that time and impart upon your children until they understand it? What's not about just giving to the kids, it's about recognizing what you're living for and why it's important. So to me, that's what these type of moments in life are really about, bringing that to our own experience. Forget about fighting against some, you know, elected uh, individual, worrying about what the police are doing or anything along those lines. It's about instilling, you know, an immeasurable strength and learning how to activate that. Yeah, that to me is what's significant, mate. So yeah, and what about you, Tom? What about you? What do you feel? What is it that you think's key to all of this?
Well, geez. I think we've pretty much covered what people, I think, if they, whether they're going in with, or they're not even thinking about going in, or they're wondering about it, or how they're going to carry themselves in there. How we carry ourselves in any situation is more important than what we're actually doing. So yes, we're going to this Freedom Day, but it's how we carry ourselves and what we carry. That's more important. That's what really defines the outcome, that defines, what we stand for and who we are. It's really important, just to be clear on that. And even if you have to do something in the morning to prepare, whatever you do to prepare, prepare yourself to still your mind, but not in a way that's like you're going into battle. You're going in to celebrate. You're going into it's just, I think we've kind of covered that enough, but it's just that mindset is key. The way we carry ourselves on the day. And remember, like Jason's been saying, it's not, the day isn't the most important thing. It is the setting of a direction within us that carries us through the next years and decades. That is what is going to make the change, because realistically, not much is going to change on the day. It's going to be what comes of that day, how we carry ourselves through life from then on, the decisions we make, what we will and will not accept for ourselves in our lives and from others around us as well, holding just that whole responsibility thing, that whole becoming an adult, becoming standing on our own 2 feet, really understanding why we're here. That's the most important thing. And hopefully these events are making that clear. It's getting people to ask, why are we here? Who am I? What am I doing with this life? And I guess the last thing I will say is that, that's that part about significance that you were talking about earlier, Jace. It's like, we're not in this particular part of time on the earth for no reason. It's like not an accident. So part of our evolution is going through what we're going through now, and that we all play a role in it. None of us are insignificant. None of us have no value in it. For one way or another, we created it, and we are creating what is currently happening and what will happen. So that significance level is actually extremely high. There might be however many billion of us, but we each play a key and integral role in what is being created. So it's very, very important to realize that we do have a huge, whether you feel it or not yet, that's not what I'm talking about. It's just by virtue of being here now, we have that significance, and it's important to realize that we do have a lot of power in the thoughts, the ripple effects, the everything, the way we carry ourselves. And that's kind of my last.
Yeah, that's amazing, Tom. That's amazing. You might need a drum roll on the way out. But
Yeah.
I was going to say, and look at whatever comes from it, but and look, I'm happy to contribute my time as well. But if there was people wanting to, and on the Saturday morning online to go through and do I mean, I do a lot of energy work, but to go through and do a collective set meditation and space.
That's a great idea.
I'm happy to be involved or facilitate that. I think it's so very important not to go off into a state of calm and peace like prior. I don't mean that type of meditation. I mean, using some energy to really release the things that we're holding on to, so we don't take them into this particular space, looking for some form of resolution or healing by being there, and to really realize that this is just a moment, and it's what we create beyond that. But like I'd be happy to be involved in that, Tom, if it's something you want to do.
I'll talk to some of the guys that I know that have kind of started this whole thing, and we'll put that out. We'll I don't know. Do you want I don't know what the times are. Ours is 11. I think some start at 9 in the morning. So I think if we did something at like 8 a.m. or something for a 20-minute session before people head out for the day, I think that'd be super powerful.
Absolutely.
One of the local guys on Sunday, one of the Indigenous mob, he said that it's important to come and walk and come from our truth, not our trauma. So to be able to set that aside first thing in the day, the right intention, that can be the thing that makes it a successful day and a fruitful day for everybody who are coming, and also for police and for anybody involved. I think that could be brilliant thing. So I'll be in touch with you, and we'll get some maybe we'll get some times. If you want to facilitate, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to do that, mate. If that's like that's what I was thinking, saying like 8 o'clock in the morning to. I know Brisbane's at 1 o'clock, and there's a few people suggesting that there, and I think I'm more than happy to do that. It'd be 20, 30 minutes max, but it's I think it's important to not just feel that, but to activate something within each of us that is like you say, to go there in peace, not through trauma.
Mm. And that collective power, I mean, it's been shown a lot of times. If at the same time everybody has this collective unity and collective intention, it's super powerful. So I think this is a great idea. Glad you suggested that. So I'll talk to some guys and girls, and we'll get some. We'll put a little bit of information about that together, and I'll organise it with you. Yes. So by Thursday or so, we'll have got that locked in as far as how people can get involved. Would it be Zoom or something, or will it be?
Oh, I think Zoom. I mean, we can even do it the same as here, and across a couple of pages, or whatever. I mean, let's keep it as simple as possible. And people that are on here, if they resonate with that, look, this is the whole thing we're going into. Share. It's the whole nature of this is being able to go to. There is a truth in the 1% changes the 100%. And that's why I believe it's so important to not have to engage every single individual, but to the more people that we've got in a place of their own, peace and truth, the more power that they have that's coming through, and the more significant they can be in their own stance. And that's what I think's. It's only when we don't have and not aware of what we have that we want to control others, and that's what we don't want. I believe anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll organise that. I'll talk to you. But in the meantime, where can people find you?
Mate, just at this stage, I live in Peregrine Springs at 140. No. I'm at no, I don't live there. I'm in just on Facebook's probably the easiest. On just at the Quantum Movement on Facebook's probably the simplest and easiest way without long drawn out navigation.
Yep. Cool. My site's almost ready. It's tombarnett.tv. If you want to go and sign on for the mailing list, that's our private site, so that everything that I've been putting on Facebook and YouTube, which I'm actually surprised I'm still on, I keep getting warnings, so it's a matter of time until I'm not on there anymore. So that's going to protect all the content, and I'll be able to put a lot more stuff on there as well that I can't put on here now. So you can go over there and go on the mailing list. But Jason, thanks very much for your time. It's always a pleasure to chat. I'm sure we'll do it again.
Sounds great, mate. I really loved it, and appreciate it. And look, let's see how we go for Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just. I'm going to have to cut this recording.
I can do that from here.
Yeah. Okay. Can you stop the live, or do I have to do that?
No. Yeah, I can do. I can do all that, I think.
Because I don't know what I'm doing.
All right.
Yeah. Me. Oh, here we go. Oh no.
Yeah. There we go.